Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 35 of the Josh Gerben Show. Today, we talk to a small business attorney in Washington, D.C. Her name is Shavon Smith. She started her law practice 10 years ago and is just now hiring her first associate. We're going to talk about her entire journey from the time of inception to 10 years into her law practice. This is an amazing conversation where we talk about everything from developing associates to pricing to client service and making your law firm more efficient. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the Josh Gerben Show, because law school didn't teach business.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Josh Gerben Show. Today, we are joined by Shavon Smith. Shavon operates a law firm in Washington, D.C. That works with a lot of different small businesses. Shavon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about the conversation.
Yeah, me too. So, I always like to start with a few questions just to let our audience know a little bit more about you. So the first question I have is how long ago did you start your own law firm?
I started my law firm 10 years ago. So we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year.
That is so cool. I mean, that is quite an accomplishment. And what type of law do you generally practice?
So we represent business owners. We represent small to medium-sized business owners, really serving as their fractional general counsel. So I always say all the legal issues that a small business may face, if I can't help you, I can certainly partner with someone who can help you. So for instance, we do not do trademarks in-house, but I know fantastic lawyers such as yourself do. So I'm sure that my clients get connected with all the legal services they need to grow their business so they can focus on that and we can focus on the legal stuff.
Are most of your clients based out of the Washington, D.C. area, or where do they come from?
So I am licensed in D.C. and Maryland, which provides, it's a great business community. And so I've been able to build a great clientele, really focusing on those two markets, but certainly have a few clients in other places as well. I'm from Michigan, so I'm licensed there as well. So I have a few clients there also.
What did you do before you started your own firm?
So I graduated from law school. I clerked for 2 years, which was, invaluable. And I always recommend to young attorneys to think about, even if you don't want to litigate, a clerkship is always really great a great kind of fourth year of law school, I like to say. So I clerked for years, right. And then I worked in big law for about 6 years. I was a litigator. I worked in insurance coverage. So all of the woes of working in big law, but all the great things about working in big laws and all the things you learn. And then the Monday after the Super Bowl in 2013, Beyonce performed. I remember I was called and say, "Hey, can you come to the conference room?" And I said, "Why? They not fire me?" And then they did. So then I was let go. Then, but it was really part of a restructuring. The firm eventually kind of was subsumed in another firm, and a few short years later, did not exist anymore. So I was pretty much jobless, but hopeful. And had really always wanted to start my own business. It was something that was like in the back of my mind. And had always been almost enamored with business owners. Like I thought it was such an amazing thing to kind of have an idea, start something and generate income from it. And speaking with friends who were business owners, they felt that there was a gap. Like they didn't know how to find lawyers, like they knew criminal lawyers or divorce attorneys, like where's our kind of niche? Like we're not a big company, but we can afford someone, but we can't pay $1,000 an hour. So I found that there was, a gap in the market. And so that's how my law firm was born.
That's an amazing story. And it's funny, my law partner, Eric Perot, he was also let go from his big law firm job and ended up, working for me after that. And now as a partner here. And I think that sometimes it's helpful if, I don't know if the stars have aligned, so to speak, but I'm sure that you being in your own firm now, it's got to be 100 times more rewarding than the work you were doing at the big firm back when you were there.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is to be so close to the client, to be involved in very many aspects of their goals. It's absolutely a rewarding experience. And, I always say I'm not a big law hater. I think that there are amazing things that one learns being there. And so that had its rewarding times as well. But this definitely, it feels like, like you probably can agree with it. It feels like purpose-driven work, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've gone up against too many big law attorneys in my practices here that I am now probably a hater in the way that they practice. So I don't have any love lost for big law, but I know I appreciate the experience that they can give young attorneys and the training that they can provide, because there's definitely an element of that, and I think we can give credit where credit's due there. That's fair. So I appreciate you coming on here and defending them a little bit. So I find it fascinating, folks, that start a practice. I mean, 10 years is a really long time to be in business. As you know, most small businesses don't make it that long. So the fact you've been in business yourself for that long is quite an accomplishment. When you started, like, how did you get your first few clients? Like, how did you end up starting, getting off the ground and getting things going from a revenue perspective?
I remember one of the things I did was meeting with other attorneys. And that was a question I always asked, like, how do you find clients? And no one really could give me a straight answer. It's just kind of like a puzzle you put together, and eventually your phone starts to ring. But for me, it was really just going out, like leaving the house, volunteering to speak, going to events, showing up where I thought business owners were. And so my strategy was just to be where the conversation about business was happening in any capacity and showing up. So that's really how I grew my business.
So you're sort of a master networker of sorts then, to be able to go to all these things and pick up clients. I'll be honest with you, it's something I've never really done. In all the business development I've done, I'm not good at going to things, and I'm an introvert. So it's not a strong suit of mine. I'm always impressed at folks that go out and do that. Do you find that there's a difference 10 years in how you're acquiring clients from when you started? What's the strategy look like these days to continue to grow the practice?
Right. I would say I'm also an introvert, but when I started my practice, I really was changing practice areas in a way. So for me, being around business owners was a way to learn their pain points and also be marketing at the same time. I will say business development looks different because it is spending time nurturing relationships you already have. So yes, the phone rings because someone found me on Google, and that's great. But now I have to make sure that I'm also equally dividing my time between the lawyers that I know and the bankers and the other people who feed my practice. But most importantly, my clients are always the best source of more work from those people that are already know, like, trust you, but also great sources of referral. So I will say it is different. And in many ways, it feels more time consuming because there'd be more elements to it. I think more relationships to nurture.
Right. That's fair. One of the things I talk to when I talk to other small firm owners, we talk a lot about is sort of the ebbs and flows of work we're getting in. Have you found over the years that there's been times where it's been tough because you might have a lot of work, and then 3 months later, the work isn't there, and you're like wondering when the phone's going to ring next? Or how has that experience been for you, trying to manage sort of that Goldilocks issue of not having too little and not having too much, but trying to thread that needle to having just enough work to keep everything moving along?
Does a person have the answer? Because it's literally either I can't sleep any hours, I have to work all the weekends, and the next moment is like, oh my God, do I need to move to a homeless shelter? Like, are clients coming in? Like, it's just always the feast or the famine. And
right. Well, I'm glad you're not alone. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have an answer. I mean, I think the way I manage it is to know that we do good work. The phone will always ring, so we're not going to stress about that. Saying no when necessary so that we're not overloading ourselves. And I think
great point.
Creating a cadence of consistency of like, this is just what we do. We make sure we nurture relationships. We make sure we send out our newsletter. Like, we do X, and just know that those things result in business. And so to not fret about, the numbers and all of that, just know that the wheel keeps turning, and these are the things that work. So we just keep doing the things that work every day, every time.
That's amazing, Shavon. I love the phrase, the cadence of consistency. You might need to trademark that. That is so important, and I think it is so overlooked in us, especially by small firm owners, because like you said, if you do your newsletters, if you do your networking, if you do your relationship nurturing, you're going to go through those dry periods. But 9.9 times out of 10, there's going to be work that's going to show up at your door, and then you'll have too much the next month, right? And it's when you stop doing all those things and you're not consistent in your marketing and you're not consistent in your relationship development that you really can have a problem if work dries up. Because I've seen other attorneys where they'll get busy and they just stop all their marketing for 6 months because they're too busy. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, I don't have any work now. And it's a huge problem. So I think, while it seems obvious to some folks maybe, but the idea that you have this, and this is Shavon's trademark now, nobody go out and file it, but that you have this cadence of consistency in everything you do as a small firm owner, that really pays off. I think that's great advice.
Even if I'm so busy that I can't do some stuff, like my clients and colleagues have become friends. So at some point, it's like, of course I can grab lunch with a friend. Of course I can grab a drink. Sure. So even if it's just those things, then that keep the wheels going as well.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's great, and I think that's fantastic for sure. The more you can make friends in work, I think the better, right? Because the less it becomes work. It just becomes, you have a conversation. I had lunch last week with a good friend who's also a referral source. I refer back to him sometimes, and so it was a multi-purpose lunch. We got to hang out and we got to talk a little bit of shop and just kind of nurture that relationship. And that's always the best kind, right? And it's not just a transactional type of thing. Do you find that, like, so you're 10 years in, and I think there's people that listen to this podcast that might be as far in as you and I are, meaning the decade or more, and there's some that are only a year or two in. Do you find that you're less, you seem to have a really good outlook on the idea that, yes, you know that the work might not be there today, but it's probably going to be there tomorrow. Has that stress, if you will, or anxiety gotten easier for you to handle over the years and look at? Or was it harder in the earlier years?
Yeah, I think it was certainly harder in the earlier years because you just didn't know where it was going to come from and you didn't know what to do to turn it on. So now I feel like I know what to do if I feel like, if I look at the numbers and say, well, we didn't have a lot of new consultations this month, we didn't do X. Like, I feel like I know the steps to do. When you're in your first year and you feel like you don't know anyone, you haven't really proven yourself, you definitely have a lot more anxiety about where the next thing is coming from. So I think, the track record of performance just makes you have less anxiety about it as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's so true and something that I've gotten better at over the years as well, in the sense that you're like, okay, I'm here and I've been here long enough. I know enough people. There's enough sort of surface area for those referrals and repeat business to come from. So it just gets a little easier. But I remember, like you said, my wife will tell you, like especially the first 5 or 6 years, there'd be some weekends I'd be like, I don't know, I'm going to have a practice on Monday. Like, am I going to have to go back to work for somebody? I mean, those are all things that, like, everybody that I think has ever started a small firm feels. And it's just always, I think it's refreshing to hear that you're not the only one that deals with it. It's not just all happy and go lucky and clients galore. So tell me a little bit about your firm. Are you a solo practitioner, and who do you have working?
So I am a solo practitioner, but I certainly have help. So we have a bookkeeper who works part-time, an assistant who works part-time. We have a few contract attorneys, and then I do have a full-time hire attorney that'll be starting this month, actually. So I guess technically yes and no to being a solo, but growing, definitely.
That's awesome. This is your first associate that you're going to hire, or have you had others over the years?
It is my first full-time associate hire, yes.
Did that make you nervous, or how did that make you feel to take that jump?
I am nervous, and it's made me nervous. That's why I've waited so long to do it. But I really regret not doing it sooner, because I can say, and I'm sure you agree as well, because I know you have a pretty big team, every person that I brought on to help me, my income went up. And so, it's just one of those, again, the feast of the famine. You're like, well, do I have enough work? Will I have enough money to pay them? And you just kind of keep going on that cycle. But eventually I was like, I have to get off that cycle and commit to growing. And so that's when I finally just put my line in the sand and decided it was time.
I think that's amazing. And I always tell everybody that I talk to that's in a small practice that I did the same thing. I didn't I had like one paralegal working with me. He happened to be my brother. So that was an easy hire. He did a job. But it took me 6 years before I hired an associate. And I remember making the decision to hire the associate saying, well, if I make that associate's salary less this year, I'll be okay. You know, like I finally felt like I had that wiggle room where I had a little bit of savings and I could afford to lose a little bit of money. And of course, the most miraculous thing happened, which is we made more money that year. And made more money. And then, you know, now we've got 14 people and we made more money in 2023 than we had made probably in every other year we've, you know, been in business yet. So it's one of those things where I have found that when you grow your team, if you're growing it in the right way, especially, there's the opportunity to really build a law practice and build revenue. And you have to remember that you're investing in yourself, you're investing in your practice by growing, as opposed to maybe throwing the money in, you know, whatever fancy AI stock there is now. You're kind of throwing it back in your practice and you're throwing it at trying to grow what you're doing. But I think that's great that you've hired somebody full time, and even great that you're making use of these contract lawyers and outside, you know, bookkeepers. I remember spending Sunday afternoons doing my books. And I mean, for years, I would just spend from like 12 to 5 on a Sunday doing my books. Now, this is before I had kids and I could do that. But, you know, then I had kids. I was like, well, I can't do this anymore. I have to be there, you know. And so have you found that, you know, obviously, I think the outside bookkeeping help and all that is critical to find those people. Do you, with the contract attorneys, how does that work? Like, do they just do like certain, do you have them like write a contract for a client, or what type of work do you have them do?
Yeah. I mean, I got to a point, and I'm at a point where I'm like, well, I can't work any more hours. So other people have to help move this ship forward. So contract attorneys for me is usually just a very discrete task. And I actually found a company. So it's a company that I use. They have, and I won't name them, but they have a list of people that you can pick from. So that was kind of my first foray into finding specialized help. And so I really do use them for more senior, specialized, I need a very specific thing, or it's a thing that I feel like I can do, but maybe there's someone who has a little bit more experience. So let me bring that person in. So that's been really instrumental in finding my client expert help, but also taking some of the load off of I can't work any more hours. Someone else has to review these contracts, look at these things as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. And I always say it's very hard to develop that trust too, I'm sure, because I always feel that even with the people I've been working with for years, and I should probably have Eric, my law partner, on some of these podcasts, because he would tell you about my neuroses and about how difficult I some days to work with. But, you know, he'll always say, well, Josh, you have to let go of this. Like, you can't be involved in everything, you know, and it's a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard thing to say, I'm going to let go and trust somebody else. But ultimately, that's how law firms work. Hey, everyone, I hope you're enjoying today's episode of The Josh Gerben Show. This show is brought to you by none other than Gerben IP. Gerben IP is a trademark, copyright, and patent firm based out of Washington, D.C. We've been in business for more than 16 years and work with clients from all over the United States and the world. If you are a U.S.-based attorney, please know that we do accept referrals from attorneys and pay a 20% referral fee for the lifetime of a client that you refer to us. We work really well with firms that don't do IP work, but need to plug in someone that does for their clients, especially someone that's not going to do the other work that you're already doing. So if you need somebody to refer your IP work to, please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is jgerben@gerbenlawfirm.com. Drop me a note. I'll be happy to schedule an appointment with you, talk about our referral program, talk about what we can do for your clients. Thanks again so much for listening. Now back to the show.
How did you train your first full-time associate? Like, what were the top 3 things you did to really get them integrated into the Josh way of doing things?
So my first associate is Eric. He was my first hire, and he's the first partner here at the firm besides me. He was so good, I had to make sure he never left. So it was an amazing experience. So what we did when he started, and he was a lot, so this is 10 years ago now, and he was earlier in his practice. So he was what I would consider a junior associate at the time. He basically had 2 years of big law experience, and was coming over with that, having had that trademark experience at big law. But as I'm sure most of our listeners know, and I'm sure you understand, that big law trademark is a lot different than small law firm trademark, right? We do a lot of different things, and we do things different ways. So I had him shadow me. I really just had him literally shadow me for probably 6 months, where He was on every single call I was on with a client or opposing counsel. He worked with me through emails. Like I would show him like how I would literally like have a video call because we were working remotely even at that time. And we'd just be on a video call together and I'd go over, okay, this is how I'm thinking about this email I got from the client. Here's how I'm responding to this. Here's what we want to do in this situation. We'd probably do that like half a day. Then the other half a day, I'd give him some work to do that I could, have him do for me and then repeat him. So it was really a very intense training period where we spent a lot of time together and he could hear me talking all day. He could see me thinking and how I was preparing emails to people. And I think it really was instructive to him on how we wanted to practice and how we wanted to do things. And it's something that was harder for me to replicate as we got more and more on into hiring people. But I think for that first associate, it was really invaluable and it created a lot of trust between us to have gone through that process together.
No, that's great insight in your mind.
Is the person you're hiring a little bit more senior or they are more junior or younger attorney?
She's junior, so she's a recent law school grad. So
yeah. And I mean, we've hired recent law school grads too. And one of the things that's the hardest thing about that is, as you mentioned at the top of the show, that clerkship was invaluable to you, right? And I think, I didn't do a clerkship, but I did an internship one summer for a federal judge in Washington, D.C., Judge Walton. And he's an amazing judge. And I learned so much in just 3 months working in his chambers with him and his law clerks. And I still employ like writing methods that I learned that summer in, now and all this other stuff. And I think that one of the hardest things about new law school graduates is they don't know how to practice law. And that's something that you have to teach them along with the substantive area of law. But so that's where it becomes more like they're almost like a paralegal support for the first year. And then after that first year, they can start to mold more into an attorney. The one other thing to think about is retention, because we have also trained attorneys out of law school for a year or two, and then they jumped and left and went to big law, because they wanted to make more money and they couldn't get into big law right out of law school. But with 2 years of experience and us on their resume, they were able to jump into an IP department at a big law firm. So we have to think a lot about retention now when we train somebody, and how do we make sure that the year or two of training we do doesn't just leave. And that's an important thing, I think, for small law firm owners to think about as you're spending your precious time, because it is precious, training somebody and bringing them up to speed.
The way I've thought about it, because I've certainly thought about this because it is a new attorney, and the time it takes to train them and what that means. And even though I'm going to get some value from it, obviously I'm giving a lot of time. But I also realize that I don't think I know how to train someone in this capacity, so I'm going to learn how to do it. It's almost like yes, you could train someone for 2 years and they leave, but man, you learn how to train somebody for 2 years, and now you cut the time in half on the next time you have to do that. So I'm also looking at it like that as well.
No, I think that's great. That's that's a glass half full way to think of it. You're definitely the glass half full person on this call.
Yeah.
I'm always like, oh man, I spent 2 years training, and they all got. No, I mean, we've developed incentive programs, and we try to, obviously we're a remote firm, so people can work from home, which is for people that want to work from home, that's a huge benefit as opposed to having to be in a big law office all day, all night long. And so there's ways to do retention. There's ways to really think about it. I mean, I found that the more I talk to and make sure I'm available and have regular meetings with our lawyers, our retention has gotten a lot better. I mean, it'll never be 100%, can never be everything to everybody, but it's been really good. And it's something that I think is important to have that consistency, because it does allow you to grow. I mean, one of the reasons I wanted Eric to stay is because his being here and his expertise and that he's developed working here and understanding of, where all the skeletons are in the closets, good and bad, it's really helpful for us to run the firm. And he's essentially a managing partner in a way. He manages younger associates that are here and frees me up to do a lot more. So I think being able to keep people is one of the secret sauces to growing a business too, if you can. So I'm always curious, Shavon, as I'm talking to other lawyers, what would you tell somebody has been like one or two of the biggest sort of pain points over the last 10 years in running in your own firm? And as I say that, I hear myself being the pessimist again, but I promise I'll go to the positive side too. But I'm always kind of curious, like, if you had to identify, like, what's the hardest thing or the hardest couple things about running your own shop? What have those been?
So I always say that if I knew if someone had to show me a map, a book, and say, these are all the things that you're going to go through, and this is how hard it is to run a law firm, I might have not done it. I might have done something else if I knew how talented.
Right.
But I didn't know.
Yeah.
I was 10 years younger. Right. You know, you're just diving.
Ignorance is bliss.
Exactly. Ignorance certainly was bliss. So I would say for me, pain points, I would say pricing is a pain point for me, just kind of figuring it out. Like figuring out the market, figuring out people's ability to absorb or what my services are worth in the market. So, and then, you know, raising and adjusting accordingly, I think has been a pain point for me. And I would say another pain point, a big one, is just the process, the operations. Like, yes, I know how to do XYZ, but what's the optimal kind of system process to make the engine run and make the engine run without as little of my effort sometimes as possible? So I would think, I think for me, it's like that project management process operations conversation of like, sure, we can take in this new matter, but what's the optimal way to kind of move it through the system? And because I do so many different things for my clients, I have not been able to figure that out yet. I'm still figuring it out, I think. And you know, the data and the capturing and the project, the case management and making sure that's optimal, like that piece of it, the pure like operations piece of it, I feel like it's not my strongest talent. So that's why I struggle.
Oh, I think that's a huge, I mean, I don't know if anybody can say that they don't struggle with that. I mean, I think what you've just laid out here between the pricing issues and the operation issues are probably two of the things we've struggled with too. I that's great insight. And to your point, I think that one of the things, and do you charge mostly hourly rate, or do you charge some flat fees?
I do flat fee. Hourly, I have monthly general counsel. Are we saying it? So I'm test everything. I do all of it.
Right. You got blended fee. Yeah, I think that's great because, I mean, one of the things we've learned over the years is that flat fees can be really good on certain things, right? Because we can make a few extra dollars if we're charging a flat fee and get super efficient at doing something, right? So if you say, oh, I can write a terms and conditions for we don't do this, but let's just say you could do a terms and conditions for a website and charge $1,500 or $2,000, but it takes you an hour because, you've done 100 of them and you have templates and you just, you figure it out for the client in an hour. Well, they're paying you for your expertise. They're not paying you for your time. And that's ideal. But then there's other things like litigation or enforcement where if you don't have an hourly arrangement, it can be really hard to figure out what a flat rate looks like. And so I think that, like you said, though, if you have systems and processes that make you more efficient, that does lead to better profitability. And we have seen that. Like as we internally have gotten more efficient and better at what we do, we get more profitable, even if it's hourly rate work, because we're able to take on more projects because we can have an associate even do some of the grunt work. And then the partner needs a lot less time to kind of helicopter in and make sure everything's good to get out the door because the partner is really good at what they do and they have the system and process to make it happen. So I agree with you that if you can work on those things and get them, and especially now you have somebody joining your team, in-house, I think that those are things you could work on, and the more efficient you get, I think you'll find the better things get. And pricing is such a crazy one because I don't know if you have this experience, but we have some flat rates, and there are some clients who I quote the flat rates for, and they go, "Oh wow, that's cheap. That's great. Yeah, sign me up." And then I have other people that are like, and then I'm like, oh, I should have charged double, right? And then I have other people that are like, oh my God, that's so expensive. Like I can go online and do that for $200. And I'm like, but it's like you hear it from both ends. And I'm like, well, where am I? I don't even know. Am I expensive?
It's exactly the same thing. So I don't have a pulse on it sometimes on where it is, which is why, I wonder if you talk to Neiman Marcus, are they pricing based on industry, or are they just setting the price because we can set it? You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you wonder what's the best way to set the price.
One of the things we have done in our practice is we've kind of had this view of like when I started, it was very much like I'll take the smallest entrepreneurs and we try to do something for them. I needed to make a couple $100 basically. It was that granular. Like I didn't have any money. I had $5,000 in the bank and I was just trying to afford my Google AdWords budget. And so then as we've grown and we've gotten bigger clients, the idea now is that, well, if a client is not willing to pay a certain floor to become a client of the firm, they're probably not the right client for us, right? And they're probably not playing in the right sandbox yet. And so, and we're not even that expensive, but, let's say our floor is like $1,500. That's not a lot of money theoretically, but to some people it's a lot of money, and that's fair. But it's if that's a lot of money to a client, then it's probably not somebody that's going to support a law firm that has 14 people on payroll that you have to put paychecks in their box every 2 weeks. So I think that we have, as we've set that floor a little higher and higher, we've noticed that the quality of client has gotten better, and ultimately you have to decide, hey, there's just a certain clientele and a certain market that's our target market and our ideal client. And once you figure that out, it does make the pricing, I think, arguably a little bit easier, because you could say, okay, I could charge this and there's people out there who will pay it. I just have to find those people, and you can't be everything to everybody anymore. And that's a bit of a challenge, but, it's also, it requires some discipline to say, okay, I'm not going to take, even though this person's willing to pay me X amount to do this and I know I can get it done, I'm not going to take it because long-term, it's probably not a good client.
Absolutely. And I think I've learned to just point people to other resources. Maybe if I think we're not a good fit, like if they feel like the pricing isn't right for them, just pointing them to other resources. And then just, when you get really busy, you're able to just move the pricing the way you need to kind of make your schedule work the way it needs to work. So.
Oh yeah, we got super busy the first half of last year. I raised our prices, and I said, well, and then we've not come back down, but because we were getting it then, and it's like, oh, okay, we were able to get a few extra $100 out of this, and we needed to because we were growing our staff, and everybody wanted to make more money. We had inflation going on. We hadn't raised our prices in 6 years or 7 years. So yeah, sometimes, like you said, you get busy. You get it gives you that extra wind at your back, or that you say, okay, I can raise them this month, and even if I take on a little less, it'll be okay. And then you realize, oh, people are going to pay it, and maybe I can stay here, and that's great, because then that means there's more revenue for you to do things with and grow your firm with. Well, Shavon, this has been fantastic. I was going to, unless you have anything for me, I had sort of one final question, end on a positive note, and then, we can let you get back to your day. But what would have been like the top one or two things that have happened to you that makes owning your own law firm and doing your own practice, worth every minute, and all the stress that comes with it is always what I like to know.
Two things come to mind immediately. It's just seeing my clients grow and seeing the exciting things that they do, the opportunities that they include me in. I mean, when you become someone's attorney, at least the way that I practice, you become so much more. Like, you become a confidant, an advisor on things that aren't necessarily legal. So I think I'm most proud of my relationships with my clients, that they trust me with matters far beyond legal. So I think that seeing them grow in our relationships, that is one thing. And then the interns that have come through the door, like the people who I've worked with, that maybe it's been a summer that I felt like I've made an impact on, that I see them doing amazing things. I see them in other jobs, and them reaching back and being appreciative of the time and the things that they learn while we work together. I think that those two things are highlights.
No, I think that's amazing. And that's one of the benefits of doing it yourself, is that everybody knows you're the one person that's helping them and pulling them through. And you get to have the feelings of those relationships and the good work you've done. And I think that, it's not like you're one lawyer in a department of 50, going back to my big firm hating, but you're not one lawyer in a department of 50. You are the person, and you are the reason that they've had that success, or that they've gotten that additional knowledge. And it's very rewarding. There's no question about it when something gets done under your, and you were the one to make it happen. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I thought this has been a really great conversation, and it's so interesting to me to hear how you've taken your practice from, the starting point to now 10 years in, and really starting to grow. And I wish you nothing but the best, and hopefully we'll be in touch a lot here over the next couple of years as we both try to continue to grow. If there's audience members, we have a lot of attorneys listening to the show. Obviously, you said, anything in the District of Columbia area, surrounding states, and even in Michigan, you work with clients. What are some, just so that folks know, if they have something they might be able to refer over to you, what other types of cases do you typically get from other lawyers that need help with something?
Yeah, so I definitely get, people looking for their business attorney. So it is, I'm growing and we know we need consistent legal help because we have the contracts, we have employment issues that come up, we have small disputes that come up. So those are the best referrals. A growing business who is looking for their true business partner is the best referral.
Gotcha. That sounds great. We will put links to Shavon's website and other contact information in the show notes, so you can make sure you find Shavon if you need any of her assistance. I think she's obviously, as you could tell in the show today, a very thoughtful and fantastic attorney. And just thank you again so much for your time today,
No,
Shavon.
thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Just a reminder that this podcast is brought to you by Gerben IP. That is my law firm. Gerben IP provides trademark, copyright, and patent services. And if you have a client that you cannot service that has an intellectual property need, we offer a 20% referral fee for the lifetime of the client. So refer us a client for a single trademark, and as that client develops over the years and needs more trademark filings and even some enforcement or litigation, we pay that 20% referral fee. Please feel free to drop me an email with any questions to jgerben@gerbenlawfirm.com. That's jgerben@gerbenlawfirm.com. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a review or just click that 5-star rating. It helps others find the podcast. If you just take a second and click that button for us, we would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.